Dawn's fog had yet to lift when 47,000 elite Macedonian soldiers formed their impenetrable phalanx. But in the next second, without even seeing their enemy's shadow, the front ranks were instantly sliced in half by an invisible giant scythe. 5-meter-long heavy spears snapped under the force of violent explosions, sending flesh and armor fragments flying. This was not divine wrath. It was a technological crushing force 23,000 times stronger than anything the Greeks could muster. Ancient Greek soldiers, even when stabbing with all their might, could only generate about 110 joules of kinetic energy, while the tank's depleted uranium armor could withstand millions of joules. When Macedonian cavalry attempted their proudest charge, the tank's thermal imaging already pierced smoke and darkness, locking onto every human heat signature. The M1 Su-28 canister shot thundered out, 1,000 Tenger tungsten carbide pellets raining while we're skiz down like a storm, instantly shredding human bodies. This once invincible force, which had crushed the Persian Empire and shredded war elephants, was now facing a total cognitive collapse. But this monster required no food, had no eyes yet could see in the dark, and needed no arrows yet delivered death at unseen distances. This was not war, it was a one-sided physics execution. Amidst the torn limbs and deafening blasts, the cold weapons era war god stood atop a height, staring at the steel beast breathing fire. He wasn't looking at crushed corpses or flying shrapnel. He was watching the pauses between the tank shots, the depth its tracks pressed into the earth. This modern killing machine, capable of wiping out hundreds in a second, suddenly revealed a terrifying weakness. Those forces tearing infantry apart 2 miles away were not supernatural. They were tungsten alloy rounds traveling at 1,500 meters per second. As screams echoed across the battlefield, the 68-ton steel monster applied pure industrial physics, slaughtering carbon-based life with unidirectional precision. But slaughter is not conquest. He began to strip away the machine's terrifying exterior, realizing its fearsome. He noticed it did not eat or drink, meaning its massive body relied on extremely demanding supplies. Its 68-ton weight granted unstoppable kinetic energy but also restricted its mobility. Mud, ditches, and dense forests were its grave. The fatal flaw was fully exposed after hours of silent observation. The beast was an isolated island. No supply lines, no repair bases, no replacement crew. Every mile the tracks rolled, every second the engine idled, consumed finite fuel. Once the hundreds of gallons burned out, the war machine became a 68-ton iron coffin. Even with 40 shells capable of killing hundreds per shot, the Abrams could eliminate only a few thousand, while Alexander commanded 47,000 seasoned veterans. The barrel glowed hot. The thermal scope flickered with points of light, yet the 4 modern tankers felt a chilling fear. They realized the Macedonians no longer charged. Instead, like ghosts, they spread out at a safe distance, digging trenches silently in the dark. The pinnacle of human industrial technology was being hunted by a spear-wielding ancient army. He saw not an invincible supernatural force but a living, breathing, hungry, and eventually fatigued steel beast. The rules of war were rewritten. This was no longer a 2-millennium duel, but a brutal systemic attrition battle. The 1,500 horsepower turbine was a fuel guzzler, consuming 10 gallons just to start, and over a dozen gallons per hour idling. The crew inside, however, had human limits. 48 hours in sealed high-pressure, high-stress conditions would dull reflexes and collapse judgment. With only 55 main gun rounds, even if each shot killed 100 Macedonians, maximum casualties were a few thousand. Alexander held 47,000 fresh soldiers in reserve. He abandoned frontal assaults, deploying engineers who had once leveled seas and built a kilometer-long tire causeway. Tens of thousands worked through the night, digging intersecting trenches, turning the flat plain into a muddy trap. Light infantry harassed in small groups like wolves, attacking day and night, never allowing the tank to mass fire. Alexander exchanged space for time, forcing the lone tank to keep moving, burning irreplenishable fuel and exhausting its crew. The blood-soaked battlefield became a reverse siege against the machine. When the 500 gallons of aviation fuel burned dry, the roaring turbine let out a final sigh and died. Outside, 40,000 soldiers pried at its armor, while inside the four sleep-deprived tankers fixated on the last deadly redoubt. This was not a firepower duel, but the ultimate strangulation of steel and fruge. Cognition, a cross-millennia echo of fate. Ammunition was limited, 55 rounds, even if each precisely killed a prey. 100 Macedonians could only take out 4,000 to 5,000. When 14,000 rounds of machine gun fire were expended, the four tankers faced 48 hours without sleep, cramped in a cabin of sweat and exhaust, hands trembling from extreme dehydration. Alexander? He simply let 40,000 soldiers disperse like ghosts 2 miles away, while elite engineers dug traps under cover of night. A reverse siege of unprecedented cruelty, 40,000 ancients surrounding a machine they could never breach, while the machine slowly consumed its humans' crew. In any era, survival is dictated not by the weapon you hold, but by the ability to perceive and exploit system limits. Alexander saw it instantly. The tank was utterly dependent on supply, and its operators were still fragile humans. If you were one of those 4 exhausted tankers, facing 40,000 Greeks, skilled in guerrilla tactics and closing in with spears, would you open the forn hatch to meet cold steel dismemberment, or end it all inside this 68-ton iron tomb with your last pistol?